Obviously, just a recap again of Friday night. As I mentioned after the game, I thought it was a terrific, not perfect event, because anytime you do those type of things, there's always things you can look back and improve upon. And if we come to a point where we do it again, definitely have a lot of things in mind that can make it even better. But I thought it was as good or better than we could ever expect. And obviously, putting the finishing touches on playing well. I think anytime you do those type of an event or events, the catalyst or the main thing is that you want to play well. So we didn't play perfect, but well enough to take care of business, and a lot of things we can get better from. As I mentioned on Friday night in the press conference there, that we've got to continue to push the bar, so to speak, and I'm still learning different combinations, and I think this team definitely has some depth that I got to continue to explore. So, like I said, just a great, looking back at Friday, it turned out really, really well. So excited to keep moving forward. Green Bay coming in tomorrow night. It's a team that struggled a little bit, but a lot of new faces. So we've been diving through film, just trying to learn the nuances of those individuals, and then at the same time trying to continue to prepare and improve and play the game better ourselves. So looking forward to tomorrow night, and with that, I'll take questions.
We'll start with Jeff over here, and then Jim.
Greg, you mentioned exploring the depth. How many games into non-conference play can you do that until you have to tell yourself, okay, I know what I've got, or can you keep doing it for as long as you want?
Yeah, I think I have to keep doing it. I think I owe it to those individuals and also to us as a team that, I've got to learn more. I've got to get McGee more minutes. I've got to get Ilver more minutes. I got to get Hodges more minutes. So I've got to find the appropriate place to do that. And I've been doing a lot of shuttling in practice, bringing guys over and platooning them back and forth. So, again, it's part of me learning what they're capable of at this point in time. Part of it's development. They got to keep pushing forward and taking steps forward, whether it's in game action or in practice, because I think, like I said, the depth, we're going to need it, and I think it can be an advantage to us as we go forward.
Jim.
Greg, in the spirit of playing at different places, would you ever consider playing a game here as a retro night upstairs?
The Fieldhouse?
The Fieldhouse, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about it over the years. We've talked about exhibition games there. We've talked about different one-offs, but there's some, obviously, with seat licensing and suites and those things that take place at the Kohl Center. And then the structure, the timing of the year is always important, because obviously Kelly's got it in full volleyball mode, and there's other events that take place in here. But, it is something that has been on the radar and talked about now and then.
Raul.
Greg, you mentioned kind of figuring out the rotation. I know it's different with this year with the team, the new faces, but how often does that take in years past to kind of figure out what rotation you want to use, how deep you want to go, and stuff of that nature?
Yeah, I think this year is unique in terms of it's going to go deeper into the year. And again, some of it will be just because I don't go deep in one game or do in another. It doesn't mean my mind is set. A lot of it, and including Friday night, was just my feel and observations during the game of what we needed at that point in time. But collectively, holistically looking at the big picture, it could be a while before we know exactly. And like I said, between the length of the season and all the things that come at you during the season, I think that having that and continuing to push guys forward and help them get better it will be important for us.
Abby.
Because of Max Klesmit getting into early foul trouble on Friday, Connor Sijian got a lot more playing time than maybe expected or maybe not as expected. I'm just curious how you felt he handled the increased pressure put on him.
Yeah, he's not one that's bothered by pressure. I mean, I've learned that about him. He's a really confident kid, got a swagger to him, specifically offensively, plays with some emotion. You see that in plays that are made. So I think Connor did exceptionally well, given the opportunity he had. And that's the advantage of having some depth, that if those things happen, you try not to get your starting two guard in foul trouble, and Max has got to learn from that on why it happened and how we can eliminate that. But it's good to see that Connor stepped in right away and was able to help us.
Zach.
Greg, kind of going off of that, I know it's a small sample size, but what have you seen defensively from Connor that you've liked?
Yeah, I think he understands how important that is. He doesn't ignore it. He owns it. That area is important for his development. I think he's got more of a toughness to him than I thought he had when we initially recruited him. He's got to get bigger and stronger, but I think that'll come in time. But he has a mentality and an attitude to him that he knows defensively when things don't go well, and it means something to him. So that's important that he understands it. We'll help him with technique, but the will to try to do it the right way is there.
Pablo.
Greg, a lot of red in the crowd, of course, but still just kind of having that experience under the belt for a lot of these newer faces, playing in neutral-ish or just different types of environments. How critical do you think that is for these guys early on?
Yeah, I think anytime you can get them, and I mentioned this Friday night, anytime you can step out of your comfort zone, so to speak, it's really easy to play a bye game, at the Kohl Center where everybody's comfortable with locker room and pregame meal and sleeping in your own bed the night before. But I think when you have these different type of experiences where it's, there's some different stimulus, so to speak, and being in a different environment, there's a lot of things that help stimulate growth in. So that was good. I mean, we'll be in big venues, we'll be in hostile environments down the road. So anytime we can get them to function and not change the process, even though we've changed the location, is always good. And I think this group understands, and I tried to, calm them a little bit Friday night before the game because they knew they were excited about it. But we still had to focus on, the 40 minutes at hand and then enjoy the environment afterwards. But I thought they did a good job of really keeping the main thing is that, as I mentioned earlier in my opening statement, the best way to put a finishing touch on that event, we had to win the game and play well, and we did enough to make that happen.
On the left here, Doug.
With Green Bay coming in and Will coming in tomorrow, I'm curious as to your relationship with him. Obviously, we know about your relationship with Bo, and he's got a great mentor in his dad that he can pick his brain of. But certainly, they've had some struggles winning some games in Green Bay. I don't know what your relationship with Will is like, and has he ever reached out to you to pick your brain about certain things?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him here recently, but I mean, I coached Will when he was a freshman in high school, Platteville High School in 1993, 94. That was when I was doing platooning. We talk about scout team guys doing platooning back and forth. I platooned between Platteville High School, where Will was a freshman on the varsity, and over to UW Platteville to help Bo in my first year there. So it was kind of I don't know if it was Bo wanted me to help get his son off to on the right foot as a freshman, or help former assistant Greg Quam get off on the right foot as a first-year head coach at Platteville High School. But I've known Will since he was a little squirt running around at camp.
Jim.
Greg, along those lines, I think we're all trying to get used to the transfer portal. When a guy like Kamari comes from Green Bay to here, you know all those guys there. Did any part of you have any pause, or are the rules now that once a guy's in the transfer portal, it's fair game to anybody?
Yeah, I think you really can't emotionally get caught up in that, because we've had guys go in the transfer portal and we've taken guys out of the portal, and I learned really quickly, you got to that's just the landscape we're in right now, so don't get caught up in why somebody's leaving, whether they're leaving, where they're going, I know the guys, we had Moores go to South Dakota State. I know all those guys really, really well. Carlson goes to Utah. I know, those guys well. So, and we had, like you mentioned, Kamari come in. We've had other guys come in. So it just, you remove the emotion from it. And I emphasized that to everybody yesterday, including Kamari. And he's done a really good job of it. He had nothing but good things to say about Green Bay and the people there. And I always ask, that's one of my first questions when we are talking to somebody in the portal, why are you leaving? And really try to find out, if there's any red flags. But there was no, Kamari just wanted a different opportunity and wanted to try to play at a place like this. So, like I said, nothing, you learn really quickly. There's so much of it going on. You just remove the emotion from it and don't get caught up in that.